D, because Phil is such a common name, it's almost impossible to be recognised by anybody. And much though my ability to be found on the search engines was good years ago, it's no longer any good without it. So I run a company called Elzware, which has been making conversational AI systems since 2002. I started making conversational AI systems about the time I met IMO, which was email response management systems, natural language processing of inbound emails, identifying intents and entities in a similar fashion to machine learning nowadays. And I've just stuck with it, and I've built more than 80 production systems, all sectors, all kinds, all types. I'm not really going to be doing much of that today. Disclaimer, everything that I say here has nothing to do with the British Computer Society in any fashion whatsoever. I may be rude about people. So this is completely and utterly my world, my thoughts. And this little ZX Spectrum, that's where I started. That's where I built my first chatbot in 1982 on a ZX Spectrum. Some people did process, some people wrote proper code, some people played games. I had a conversation, and I sort of stuck with it. So this is what we're not talking about, you'll be happy to know. Some of this stuff is potentially very interesting for another day. Virtual influences is something which I've got a project ongoing with right now. AI within an Instagram environment. History of AI over there. You're all professionals. I'm just going to sort of hack into what I think is actually going on. And this is what I started off with. I started off with 150 slides or something like that. And I've cut them back and cut them back and cut them back. And now we've got to a point where we have something to work with. So question. Are there any scientists in the room who are either computer data or social scientists? Computer scientists first. Data science, one data scientist. Okay. Social scientists? Physicists? Physicists. All right, this is good. Essentially what we have here is we have an open playing field. So I can really just go a little abstract and a bit socio-cultural. What I didn't tell you is that my background is electrical and mechanical engineering through cabinet making and anthropology into IT. So really my view of things is very much if you can build it and fix it with one of those skill sets, then it's worthwhile doing. So this is what I said I was going to talk about, and that's probably why there's so few people in the room, because most of them got scared off. They agreed to it in principle, and then when they read it again. So I distilled it down a little bit. And we'll like it up into case studies of the underbelly. I've actually grabbed a whole load of stuff that has been on my browser. My browser has something like 300 tabs on it. If I find anything interesting, open it on a tab, and then once in a blue moon, I come back and clean it all down. And I didn't get to the end of it. Typing and artificial intelligence. This is the core of what I want to do here. I want to make it clear what isn't artificial intelligence from a production point of view, not from an academic point of view. I'm going to be moaning a lot about surveillance capitalism because I think it's a real problem. It's a real problem which we need to take out to people. And I'm going to talk a bit about hybrid AI systems. So firstly, what's a conversational AI? Jimmy Shah is an absolute brilliant academic up at Coventry University, working with Kevin Warwick, who's the fellow who was crazy enough to put a chunk of RFID before it was RFID into his arm, so his wife could control him from the garden, I believe. And Jimmy Shah and I met at Hugh Liebner's version of the Turing test some 15 years ago, I would think, and I asked Hugh Liebner a question. I said to him, so when somebody wins the Liebner Prize, well, actually, the question I asked him was, why don't we have a different prize? Why don't we have a conversational prize and then a business prize? And what Hugh Liebner said to me was, well, if one of them works, then they'll all work. And I've heard this a lot over I've been doing this work professionally, and a far longer period of time that I've been interested in it. These two things are not synonymous. The ability to have a conversation is something you can do with a 4-year-old. The ability to have a discussion about your heart is something that you're not going to have with a 4-year-old. So these are parts of the best practices which I think I'd be prepared to put into a formal higher educational piece of training if such a thing existed, but right now it doesn't. Everybody's focused on data science and data scientists. Yeah, UX and UI is being driven forward in a way which is taking IVR kind of constructs and then presenting them as conversational AI, and it's not. But what I'm interested in is this: who has flesh in the game? Startups and venture capital, huge amount of money. Academia does. There's been huge, long-standing arguments about what is the right or wrong way to deal with artificial intelligence. It just sounds like it's having a moment. Yeah, maybe there's some artificial intelligence in the speaker and it's being affected. Players, and there are a few of them, and I would say that Elzware is one of those. Artificial solutions, one of those. Is one of them. Old is one of them. Most of them have been absorbed over the years. Is there anybody else? Oh, okay. The last big mention again, big surveillance technology companies, people who have taken on the voice interfaces, the hardware that you.
If there's anybody on this call who hasn't muted their microphone, please do so.
There you go, sounds good. Big tech, big surveillance tech, which is a huge problem, and I'm not just speaking as an anthropologist, and I'm not speaking as a parent because I'm not a parent. I'm just speaking as somebody who's old getting corrupted. Yeah. The last people who are interested are the governments and institutions, and potentially it should be standards, institutions, and the regulations which currently don't exist. So these are the reasons why I think people make conversational AI. These all make logical sense. This bit here concerns me somewhat, the social stock marketing. If you have sufficient information about people, you're able to then make a bet on what they're going to buy, what they're going to do. Most of that data has been taken from us illegally, not so, because there's no laws. Unethically, I would argue that there has been. But let's come back to the conversational AI, because this is not supposed to be a rant about what isn't right with our internet right now. So the sandwich which we have, this is the way I think we should see conversational AI, has three levels: the speech to text, and the text to speech, and the conversational element in the middle. These three things are not synonymous. AI is not a clustering of all of these things. Right now, the speech to data, speech to text has got much better through machine learning and big data, and that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. Without it, there would be no voice to computer available. The text to speech, machine learning is used in there. It's used to blend the edges of words and phrases. If you go to somewhere like Cereproc, which is quite a cool Scottish company that has a lot of different voices that you can impact with a thing called synthetic speech markup language and make it more human-like, yeah, then you'll find that they're beginning to work with that. In the middle, the conversation, which is machine learning based, is, to be frank, pretty stupid. I mean, absolutely quite amazingly stupid, considering, but we'll come to some examples. Firstly, we'll talk about money. Yeah? Outrageous money ambitions section. Why is this so much money? It's because there's this much money which has been put into artificial intelligence according to, where are we now? PitchBook's AI vertical. In total, that is $74.2 billion in the last 5 years. Yeah, is that a big number? Yes, that's a big number. What is that in comparison to? It doesn't really matter. This presentation, it's a big number. There's a lot of people's erogenous zones on the line. Yeah. So what have we got coming out the back of it? OpenAI is doing stuff with reinforcement learning, which is making virtual robots fall over reasonably well. This bit is good. These are good things. This is part of that 76 billion, yeah, but it's not conversational AI. Yeah. AI Now's data genesis program. I mean, these are all things that I've opened up, and I try, you know, I glance through them. I try and get a feeling for what's going on in the world. But what I actually get out there, and I got this from Doctor Who, yeah, is back in the early days of electricity, there was artificial electricity and natural electricity. Yeah? Natural electricity came from electric eels and such like. It was the electricity that was generated from the human being, that's generated within your electricity, was generated together at different places, reactive charges, and therefore, any kind of position now, specifically with the conversational AI, or more broadly, and statistics, to want a better term, which is engineering. I don't have a beef with either of them independently. What I'm for is to get a hybrid system in the middle that has a set of practices that don't currently exist. I love this. I mean, and artificial intelligence is tomorrow's electricity. That's actually quite a good line, I think, because electricity in and of its own right has danger, it has value, but it's not until you stick something on the end of it that it's actually going to do anything whatsoever. Yeah. And then we get into all of this kind of pejorative kind of malarkey, the weak versus strong, the narrow versus general, you know, true versus. I mean, why can't we have an AI which is false and lying and mendacious? You know, why don't we just call out those AIs that are in that kind of fashion? I think the bit that irritates me about this is how this kind of vernacular has crept in. But I'm the kind of person who's irritated that Google is now synonymous with search. It's not at all. You know, to search is to search. To Google is to use something which will asset strip your information to search. Yeah. Same as hoovering, same as vacuuming, same as sandwiches and carpets. Yeah? So what I did was I then started looking about for other kinds of AI dichotomies, and I came up with 33 types of artificial intelligence, and then I found this from Forbes, which I thought was interesting. But for me, see right now, as somebody who practically delivers conversational AI systems and has done for 20 years, is there's too much la-di-da. There's too many descriptions of things that are fluffy and far too few things which are actually set to be of real value, real robustness, really tested, really structured, rules, classifications, regulations. So, so this one came up recently from a lady on Twitter relatively recently, and I sort of dug into this one a little bit. You know, so the OpenAI was not for profit until they decided to become profitable. Yeah? They're funded by somebody who's clearly got more money than, you know, God or goddess, depending on which path you take. And this lady here, Karen Howe, went in and had a proper sort of look at this. I mean, I can share some of this now, but the thing that irritates me about this is GPT-2. Yeah? So this is a text guessing algorithm which was delivered out onto the world on the basis it was so dangerous they'd only deliver a tiny bit of it. Yeah. Now, you know, it's sort of really quite tosh. Yeah. If you think, I mean, I'll come to this slide a little bit later on, but trying to guess what people are going to say next is not a conversation. That's an irritation. Yeah. You know, if you met somebody in a pub and every time you said something they try to guess what you're doing next, you'd leave the pub. You know, so it's one of those. Let's not mix up clever people with tools that don't actually have a viable rationale or reason. They're not tools that I would use, and I have. Yeah. If you dive into this though, to look at the piece, you end up with this. Yeah. MIT, do you trust your AI? Good question. Lots of that. We'll come to the IMF law shortly. Yeah. And then when you click through, it'll only cost you $3,000 to get into the conversation. Yeah. Now, everybody who came here today just needed to know about it. $3,000 to even be in the conversation is not acceptable. Yeah, this is important stuff. Yeah? But let's come back to these people again. I won't have a big mind frame. Let's move on. What people think section. Yeah. As an anthropologist and somebody who has been talking about these systems for the best part of 20 years, people think all sorts of stuff. People think
Future of work, fast company, up to date. More people trust a robot than their manager. What does that say? What does it say about humans? What does it say about people's expectations of, film reviews? Oh, I could spend ages in this. This is a whole presentation in and of its own right. Metropolis, everybody died. Terminator, everybody died. Robot and Frame, that was a good one. Watch that one. That was very clever. Yeah, it was an old person being looked after by something that was receptive to their grumbling. And I'm very much hoping that by the time I get that old, which is not that far away, I feel, I'll have a robot to look after me. Automata was an interesting one. The issue with the automata was that the protocols of the design, the AI robots that ran off the rails was created by an AI that they turned off. Yeah? So there's some interesting little sort of not Terminator kind of turnaround, HAL 2001 kind of, who's going to die stuff. But Her for me and Blade Runner 2049 are the ones that I think are most relevant to what the general public will buy into. In Her, the movie, the human being wears the computer system to have a physical relationship with the other person. In Blade Runner 2049, the hologram overlays a human being for the same reasons. Is this kind of playfulness, this kind of AI by convenience, this extension. And don't get me wrong, I'm as much a sci-fi person as everybody else, And then we have, I don't even know where those buttons are.
Is that okay?
It's not a. That one.
Does it appear on the screen?
No.
Remote control.
They've got 6 minutes
The ones in the other room.
Hey.
Good man, thank you. So the last one, Westworld. I actually really love this. I watched the first version. Sorry, I found the button. Thank you. Westworld as a setup. Maybe it's just because I'm in the market. It's really interesting. But the bit at the beginning of who had seen Westworld? Anybody? No. Yeah, so there's a recent one that came out, yeah. And in the first series, they actually go past and you can see your room, right? Standing static as he's like outmoded, yeah. And for those people that saw the original one, it's like that's Wolverine and whoosh, and then big moment, yeah. The second version of it, the first series, it's all about how the AI is becoming conscious of itself, yeah. It's a brilliant story. And part of that 76.5 billion is being spent on that right now. But it's what I'm more interested in, and this is something I'm going to show you a little video of fairly shortly, is this thing here, Iron Echo Board. Has anybody come across Iron Echo Board? Yeah. Okay. All right. So I won't explain it. But these are the 2 questions which were asked by some UE-funded research from the Digital Centre for Research and Culture at UE. And what they were looking to do was to try and see how people's perception of AI was when they had a sophisticated conversation with an AI. Yeah? And I'll show you what that looks like a little bit later. And this piece of research is coming out when you get a chance to sort of go through and sort it out. Natural language processing, good, bad, ugly section. If nobody in here is a good processing, it's probably going to be less interesting than you would think. This is about self-learning and training systems. This botgen company here are trying to back a second. This idea that you can build something. Well, don't get me wrong. I like Raza. Yeah. Machine learning and open source and Raza, based in Berlin, are good people, full stop. Yeah. What I is that they're not fully hybrid yet. Yeah. they're still looking at building a system and training it on the basis of a neural network or network and creating something which is a chatbot, not a conversational AI. So this botgen and these people here, fast AI, trying to re-geekify neural networks. These are 2 years ago other models that have come out, and the complexity of them. Now, part of the problem with this is that the complexity runs in the computing power, which then comes down to efficiencies of construction. Yeah? So even MIT flagged this up, and they came up with this fairly shouty kind of headline back June of last year. Yeah? Then we have companies that have popped up, and again, I'm not picking on anybody specifically, I'm just saying that these kind of good words, which sound good if you're doing sort of life coaching, and these kind of websites, which sound like it's all sorted, and really it's not, and no one's coming. Yeah? And this is just confusing the market right now. So I'd like to break it down into this element here. Common uses of NLP and chatbots. Ubisoft, who are on the bandwagon, don't get me wrong, British company, but they do more good than harm in my humble opinion. Yeah, intense entities and sentiments, you know, and these are the building blocks. This is the sophistication that they have for conversation. Intense, you can read that. Entities, you can read that as well. It's pretty blunt, yeah. Sentiments. So on the basis of the way that Elzware builds conversational AI systems, these are 1% of the methods which we use. And it concerns me hugely. But we still have this, why is there so much snake oil? And it's because of this. This character here, this gentleman here, who I don't necessarily know, but I thought he'd really put it into a great space. Just by writing, you're giving away clues about yourself. And you know that's true. We all know that's true as human beings. We meet people and we'll immediately make a call on who they are and what they sound like. Yeah? So as humans, you are nearly meaner. Yeah. Did anybody catch the meaner detail recently? This was the most Google again. Yeah, the company that took 3 letters out of the word good and thought that it would make them good, and it clearly didn't. Yeah, even they tried to distance themselves and don't do evil, bless their hearts. Well, actually, don't bless their hearts. But meaner, nobody's come across it. Shame. Okay, let's move on now. So this is meaner, and what the Google employees did was they created a self-serving classification methodology to show that humans are clever and Mina was slightly less clever, Mitsukum, Cleverbots, Dialog GPT, and Zowsi. Yeah. The problem with this, this guy here, David Burdham from Dayton, who's been doing this almost as long as I have, is that the best response that you get is no better than GPT-2. It's trying to guess what you're doing next. Yeah. The performance of the bot, just make some notes here. The performance of the bot. So the schematic that they put was that it was a sensible reply and it was specific, which is not really sort of what you'd expect from a 9-year-old. Yeah. What the Dayton folks are doing is they're working with Grice's maxims: quantity, quality, relation, map. Yeah, so you've got something you can actually get your teeth into at that point there. So the way that we work at Elzware is we draw conversation from different parts of a rules-based knowledge base, and we then tag and concatenate them into a stream, which we will then refine according to the drivers of the conversation at hand. So it's a sophisticated piece of engineering. It's not just build an algorithm, dump data into it, and if what comes out isn't what you want, stir the data. So these two here, yeah, so these two here, Mitsuku and Cleverbot. Mitsuku is made by a guy from Bradford Way, Leeds, sorry, Steve Worsley. Mitsuku is the best conversational AI system in the world. It doesn't, on the basis that it's won the Leadner Prize 5 times now. It has an entry in the Guinness World Book of Records now. Yeah, no machine learning whatsoever. hand-built by somebody who's focused on it over many years. Yeah? Cleverbot, Rollo Carpenter from Exeter, he's built the system. He's been doing this as long as I have as well. No machine learning, but a far more interesting approach to gathering information and triaging it. So, so this is me. Anyhow, this is Google's me, trained on 2,048 TPU cores for 34 days, which cost $1,400,000 of compute time to train this chatbot model, and that conversation could have been and should have been and will have been made by people who come in to be trained at Elzware in their first day. So $1.5 million plus the other people, you know, it's sort of, I remember a few years ago at the beginning of the bubble, when everybody started jumping on the bandwagon, the chatbots were cool, yeah? The chatbots were cool. Everybody thought you could do it in 5 minutes, yeah? Which has been shown to be not true, unfortunately. And somebody came on, chatbot can help you order a pizza, which did make me laugh, because that's the first job that we gave people when they came in. Create a chatbot, you can have a conversation about ordering a pizza. Yeah? This company here, this is 2016, meet your new co-worker, and they're still punting the same. That's not happening. It's too much snake oil. This is actually a piece of Logica from 2001. So this is virtual agents in 2001, and the key messages, working with eBrain and StratumSoft, both gone, available even through interactive television. Yeah, imagine in 2001, interactive television, virtual agents that can learn from our buying behavior before surveillance capitalism. That was still quite benign. This company expert never gets tired, never loses patience, and never gets paid. Yes, you do need to pay for it, you know. Data generated through this time. This is a really important point that I'd like to make as we sort of chase through the end of this presentation. The thing with conversational, which is rules-based, is that you can generate good quality data, which can then be used by machine learning. If you start with machine learning and you try and create a conversation, it's always going to be the middle of the bell curve. It's always going to be the bottom of any kind of information. For customer support, but if you want something more sophisticated, you're wasting your time. And then we get people like Samsung. Takes 10 GPUs to run. Yeah, 10 GPUs to run. Yeah? The conversation which the fella had with them live at CES was about as good as Maintenance, which is a shame. But the bar is very low. Yeah. If you want, from my point of view, if you want to find a reason for people to take Alexas into their house, it's because Alexa makes really good farts. Yeah. So if you search, not on Google obviously, for Amazon Alexa farts, you can see this fellow who has probably since died. You know, that's not a good body shape to be carrying for the device. But it's one of those things that gets people habituated to it. But it also drops the bar. It also drops the expectation of the sophistication of the conversation to a point where really we're no better than trees. Yeah. This is something that I saw recently as I was driving somewhere, and I've always wondered whether it was actually a thing which was an April joke, but I've never done so. So I'm going to introduce you to something which I put in place last year at a show I gave in Bath, which is the George Orwell headline factor, yeah, obfuscating future folks. Yeah? So this is on the basis that the amount of surveillance that's going on, George Orwell, if he was able to turn in his grave, would be turning so much you could fry eggs on the top of it. And I started allocating factors to various different things, mainly for fun, yeah. And it comes out as go F off, yeah, which is straightforward and easy, and I might even show no-code chatbots. I'm just sort of naming and shaming really. These are not places where you're going to get conversational AI, but you will get a chatbot. Moves and shakers section. These are people who I think are doing some good things, trying to meld in neuroscience, psychology, and AI, trying to bring together different kinds of scientists that we were talking about earlier on. And they're dealing with some really interesting questions here. How can we hope to build an artificial intelligence when we still understand so little about human intelligence? That's an issue which comes up in EchoBall. I'll show you that in a moment. How can we build a synergistic partnership between cognitive psychology, neuroscience, and artificial intelligence? Get started. It's a logical thing to do, you know? You have to have all parties in the game here. I'd really love to have dived in. I mean, I'm glad I didn't, and I haven't, and I won't, about the different kinds of algorithms and expressions and methods and where they fail and how much they cost, and that's not to do that at all. They are all profiling human beings, and that's the reason for it. Brightest brains in the world are trying to get all of us and everybody else to click on a button and to make that ad revenue work, which is a huge, huge shame. These are some of the big shouts. Top bots do some good stuff. They're seriously lost in acronym world. And the thing that we've got at the bottom of this is that, from my point of view, all of this stirring is just alchemy. Yeah? I mean, it's a shame. It's genuinely a shame. There's a lot of money and effort that's been spent here. But what we really need to do is to. I mean, this is worthwhile. These gentlemen here, Jeffrey Hinton, Joshua Bengio, and Jan LeCun. So that's Facebook, Google, and one of the other universities, University of Toronto, University of Canada. These three gentlemen are all arguing the same thing about deep learning on the basis that deep learning is the great panacea. It is the method of alchemy which we have right now. And the notion is a self-supervised training. So you take a black box and you use a black box to train a black box, and that's in some way going to make it a better black box. Shocking announcement. Conversational AI is not just search. Search is fine, and machine learning algorithms work very well on it, but it's just surveillance. Unfortunately, conversational AI is not simple. I'm so sorry about that, but equally I'm not sorry about that, because in 1982 when I built my first system, I was like, it's going to be big. And 10 years later, here we are. Standards and classifications are moving towards us. The IEEE are doing some good work right now. The EU are beginning to put some sensible work in. So this is February 19th. And then one of the guys I work with, Nick Taylor, had something quite interesting to say. I thought, standard stuff, software industry, who adopts it, who controls the IP? If there's a standard and everybody agreed with it, wouldn't it mean that people would make less money? Which is sort of a shame. And ethical standards in robotics and AI. I had a fireside chat with a group of people in the anthropology and technology community recently with this professor who is a professional warrior. And we talked about this interesting stuff in here. There's no specific standard for conversational AI because there's no training, which is a shame. There's a British standard. There's an IE P7000 series. Which looks like these are all the standards which the IEEE are beginning to bring out. But then the closest you get to something which is engineered is semi-autonomous. Yeah? All these words mean nothing until you add something to it. Do people really care about it? Yes, they do. This is quite a good one. So this is Yankee. This is an interesting one as well. Smart devices, how many are actually out there? And it's the things that you walk around and stick in your ears, which are going to be the real surveillance devices in the future. There's a thing called a bingo or a ringo. It's a little thing that you stick on your front door, and when you walk up, it knows it's you. Got caught selling its data to Google and Facebook recently. Somebody gave me a figure. I'd need to check out what figure it is. It's something like between $5 and $10 per month for everybody in the world who's on the internet. That's the value of your data. which has been traded on essentially a black market. Yeah? And now I can't quote that, but and I saw this. I'm sure this is April the 1st. This is a bracelet some people at the university put together, and they would not be picked up by the surveillance devices in their friends' houses when they went there. Hopefully, we'll make a little slicker as we go forward. So, what have we done? We built this. You know, we built Iron. Yeah, and I'm just going to play this. Hopefully, the audio will be good. Yeah. In the short introduction, So that's an interesting thing we've taken about. We've run 40-odd shows. We were shortlisted for a Future in Storytelling Award in New York, and we've built it in our part-time. This is not a major build. There's not like 40 people and hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of anything going on at all. What we're doing is we're generating conversation between human beings about what is AI and what is not, and how those things are going to fit together. Yeah, and we've got some good gigs coming up. We're up in Brighton. We're going to be at CogX at the Lovelace in the British Library. So, and it's now configured so that it could be as useful for a corporate to generate understanding with people who are being replaced by AI and augmented by AI. Yeah. What we got out the back of all of this, and what I got out the back of where I am as an engineer, anthropologist, IT, is this stuff. We've got to stop the hysterical media. We've got to stop people who are just shoveling data in and expecting it to magically become relevant. We actually need a digital identity for everything and everybody that touches the internet, which is sort of problematic. It goes against our sense of human rights. But without it, what's to stop people being trolled? We need to have some a protocol which allows different conversational AIs to all fit together. The bandwagon needs to be burnt. Everybody who spent all time and effort doing this 5-minute malarkey, you can build a chatbot, should be stood in a corner with a dunce's hat on. There's no free lunches. So, bottom line, I actually think we should nuke all the conversational data in the world and start again from scratch. Conversational data as a thing has only appeared because there's been the ability to unethically gather it from people who don't read the terms and conditions. So how do we take back control again? We need to nuke all the conversational data. If we did that, we could generate better conversational data, and we could reset it so that everybody who gave their conversational data had some value back to them, implicit or explicit. And you know what? This came out this morning. Yeah, in Berners-Lee. I'm trying to load this video. I don't really know what it is to say right now, but the control for me is the moot point. Yeah. If you don't watch this on Code Project, you should do. Where's the horse go and why is the barn work? How do we take back control over data? We need to look back over the science fiction which we had. And don't get me wrong, I am as much a lover of science fiction. I was reading the Asimov's Foundation trilogy, the Harry Seldon, in the Foundation trilogy, spends his life developing a theory of psychohistory, new and effective mathematical sociology using statistical laws of mass action. Yeah, 1951. Yeah, same time as the view of robots at that time was that we were all going to be not working for them. Yeah? That didn't work, and I don't think this is going to necessarily work either. But brave new cyberspace section. So what I've come to with my conclusion is there is no snake oil in conversational AI because 99% of what is out there at the moment is not conversational AI. We need to move past the chatbots, move past the alchemists, move past the big tech, move to the conversational data. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be brilliant? Everybody starts again from scratch. We need to move past the methodologies which are guess and stir. Pretty much all of the pure statistical, unsupervised and semi-supervised. We move back into think and test because this is just normal software engineering. There's nothing unusual with it. Anybody who can create a software engineering system that can run something enormously complicated can build conversational AI. But we also need some outliers. We need this organisation, Anthropology and Technology, conference last year, shout out. We need to get some funding in for this one for this year. This is a collection of technologists and social scientists trying to find the middle ground. And we also need all women in AI. We need people who are in the middle of the mix. You so often go out and see pictures, no disrespect to your beard fella, I'd have one if my wife would let me get away with it. But you so often come around tables of people in AI, and it's men with beards. Yeah, mainly white men with beards, you know. We've got to get everybody into the conversation. So, so there is no snake oil with conversational AI. This is a high-level view of what it is that we need to do. This is what I've been doing. This is what myself and the team of people I work with do. And what we then get is we end up with a sandwich where the speech text is ethical and plug and play. That's logical. It's logic. It's literally logical methodology, isn't it, Emma? You know, that was the kind of thing that we were looking at 20 years ago. Same with the text to speech. This isn't a monopoly. And the machine learning should inform sophisticated rules-based systems where the human is kept in the loop. Yeah? Machine learning sits out on the outliers. It's a dumb methodology. Yeah? So that's the scientists, non-human scientists. This part of the presentation doesn't work. Thank you very much. You've been listening to me. I've been ranting, and that's Elzware. Can't believe I managed to get that in with 1915 was my target. 1920. Yeah, that's fine. That's really good. Any questions or thoughts? True. Oh, no, that's a lovely question. I'm going to read the question. Oh, absolutely. Yes. If I built my first chatbot in 1982, how did I preempt that it would be such a big thing? I think the ability for people to talk to an other in an anthropological sense of the term, to communicate with the exotic or the unusual, is a driver. And the ability to communicate with computers. I mean, I was a motorcycle courier in the early 80s, and I popped into the Apple store where they're building at the end of Tottenham Court Road just to see a mouse, yeah, just to see how what used to be called the man-machine interface, because women clearly weren't allowed close to the computers, getting Ada Lovelace and all the other people. You know, for me, it was one of those. I was just interested on how people would blend. You know, I think there's sort of science fiction and science reality. Yeah? So that was part of it. Second point, I sort of, you know, my dad gave me this Loner ZX Spectrum, and I was like, well, what do I want to do? I just want to talk to it. You know? So I started from scratch, and then the next chatbot, significant chatbot I met was in a bar, in a virtual world in 1997. On a dial-up modem in a thing called Meridian 59. And it was so stupid, you know? And then I ended up in Logica, and I just stuck at it. I just stuck at it. I just persistence and determination. That's a good line. I think some of the interesting winters that we've had recently have been, because there's been significant winters before I really sort of picked up sticks with it. Some of the winters that we've seen were the social media winter. Yeah? So if you go back to the early noughties, when people were talking about chatbots, before conversational AI, the technology wasn't even there for it. I use an open source pattern matching engine, which has real sophistication. JSON input, output, command line control, C++, backend, razor quick, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's a real tool set. But when social media came out, the people who had budgets and the desire to communicate with people in the mass went, social media will sort it out. Give it to an intern, answer the question once, and it's all sorted. You know? So there's been quite a lot of sort of mini winters. And interestingly, the geek chat that's gone on with stuff has been whether we are in, whether we're heading towards another AI winter or not. The three deep learning guys with the sort of three monkeys thing that they were going on doing there, they are fighting for a validity of a methodology like perceptrons, which was described by Marvin Minsky as part of the AI winters. So what I'm trying to do is to say it's not an AI winter which is coming towards us. What we've got is a clearing of the depths. It was on one of the slides. on the Nina slide? Because Tate was terrible, wasn't it? I mean, it was based on people will reinforcement. Yeah. You know, if people say that's a good idea, then that'll be fun. Yeah. Milo's another band one. Siri's about. I mean, Siri was a winter in and of its own right. So when Apple turned up, Siri to start with, having been working on this for, you know, some time, 11 years by that point, 2011, I think it was Siri, and I was like, wow, biggest company in the world, brightest brains, most beautiful design. What's it like? Rubbish. Cortana, rubbish. Bixby, rubbish. It's because they're not trying to deliver conversation, they're trying to control your interaction with the digital world. And that for me is a major problem. I think that should be opened up. I think that should be down to everybody as an individual regionally, you know?
With the explosion of home digital devices, particularly in the last 3 years, you mentioned Siri, but there's also Alexa and Google Home and so forth. And there's been a real advance, I think, in speed recognition. Most of the time, these things tend to recognise what I say to them. But the conversational level is very, very low. For example, I say to my Google Home, play me such and such a radio station, and he gets it wrong, and then say, oh no, I didn't really know that. Of course, by that time it's switched off and handed off to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I totally agree with you. In terms of conversation, there's nothing there.
It sort of puzzles me why that's so. You know why the biggest companies in the world can be placing something that people's science fiction expectation is that it will just say hello and then go from there. I think it's because their fundamental methodology of taking data of conversations and turning it into something in word vector space is just about gambling what happens next. It's not thinking about conversation. The person that is part of the team that is making an app at the moment, which will become public in due course, is complex, it's personal, neuro-linguist. Yeah, we need to have people who understand the essence and art of science and narrative, and then the structures which are then created are not just, you know, I mean, I've often thought the system which everything that I've been building over the years is based on, it's called Dorian. Yeah. On the basis that each stays young and I get old, and that still makes me laugh after all these years kind of thing. And it's a set of large number of nodes. The nodes can be seen in different sort of filters on top of a lottery draw machine. Yeah? So if you're talking to a certain part of the conversation, you're involved in that pool, in that sphere. That sphere has then got the ability to give you a direct answer or part of a decision structure, could be proactive or reactive. Those are then connected up with other parts of conversational construction. So when you're talking to something like a Google Home or an Alexa, you know, really you've got how you're being monetized more effectively, and everything else is not wanted. There is a new player, or at least there's a player on the market called Mycroft. Yeah, Mycroft.ai are an open source a Google Home kind of smart speaker. Yeah? They recently got trolled and taken to an American court by a patent troll in America. Made a shout. This is like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, and they called this oinks bluff. Yeah, and he backed off. You know, I'm assuming it was a he. Yeah, it might have been a she. It might have been somebody who was in the middle. You know, who cares? The point I'm making is that they're trying to do something which is open source and constructive and positive, and in America they got taken. Yeah. I'm a firm believer that Mycroft is going to be an interesting thing. I personally don't have any Alexas or Googles in my house. All my privacy settings are super locked down. You know, I mean, that's sort of the right side of paranoid, I'd like to think. You know. The professor who did the standards thing called himself a professional warrior. Yeah. I make things and I fix them. That's all I do.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much. Very interesting talk. I'm not sure I understood everything, but you know, certainly entertaining.
Good.
Thank you very much indeed. you've, I mean, I know all practices that present on your DCS book at this point, thank you. You've ordered one that is currently published in manual, I believe so. Yes. I've given them the email address to arrive in the post. Come back to me.
Thank you, Chris. Excellent.
So, if we can thank Grant Hamill will be speaking on agile methodologies. Grant has recently joined a more senior position to myself, I believe, where he's employing agile project management in multiple global projects. I'm not sure what it means, but it sounds it. We've asked him to speak on how to identify genuine versus fake practice, and how to coordinate agile teams, etc. Hopefully, I will be meeting John for coffee sometime tomorrow in Newbury, and we'll confirm what it is and try and get a synopsis fire out. There should be some sandwiches in the room there. It's in order though. You're welcome.